Hi everyone! In today's video I have a rather silly eyeshadow palette to discuss. I missed the Flora Kalahari palette last year, and in fact it actually restocked I think maybe 5 months ago or so, and I didn't have the budget to get it at the time. Sold out like maybe like a couple weeks later it was gone, and of course at this point in time I'm pretty sure it's like gone, like I don't think it's ever coming back, so I was honestly pretty pissed about it. It just came at the worst time possible. It felt like everything always comes at the worst time possible, it feels like. So when BYREDO revealed their new 2023 limited edition eyeshadow palette, Remembrance, I got really excited, and then they showed the photos of the inside and I was like... But then I saw swatches of it, and honestly I feel like brands sometimes just really shoot themselves in the foot with such terrible promotional imagery. So it's a lot prettier in person. So here's what it looks like. Now, this shade here came a little bit popped out. They are just direct in the pan, so it almost has this flat Photoshop effect, so I just had to push this one back in. So I saw swatches and I was definitely really blown away, especially by the silver in here, so I have really high expectations. This is going to be my first time trying BYREDO shadows. I have heard really mixed things about their quints, and a lot of their quints have pressed glitters in it, which to me is such a waste of money. You're paying so much for the price and the logo and blah blah blah, and they stick a glitter inside. I mean, talk about cheap. So this definitely is very beautiful. The art on the front is very pretty. We'll try it. I have no expectations, honestly. I got this off of Selfridges, so I paid a little bit less, but not very much less. Palette does not go very dark, and there's not very many dark shades, so I don't know how much variance I'm gonna get out of these looks, but I mean, we'll see, right? We'll have fun with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to start off first. I think I'll start off first with this shade here. It's late at night again. I still do very much have kittens. The only thing about this palette that kind of confuses me, maybe just ever so slightly, is the fact that a lot of these shades are very warm, but then the silver is a very cool silver. I think that's really the only part of the palette that confuses me. I'm just kind of like wondering, oh, where does the silver fit in? Also, this matte does not have sparkles in it. This brush has some leftover sparkle, and there is very little kick up, not dusty at all. It feels kind of almost like a little bit more creamy. Goes on a little bit darker than I expected, which is nice. I did put down the Rare Beauty primer. So far I'm having a really easy time using these shadows. I'm kind of wanting to start in the middle and then go lighter and darker from there. So far very easy to use. I'm not necessarily getting like opaque pigment, but I'm also not getting like feeling like I have to build this up, and I'm barely dipping into the pan. Like, I'm a total baby with my eyeshadows. I handle them like glass, so I'm really not having to go hard. Definitely what I would expect this kind of performance out of a palette this expensive. Now granted, this is like a similar price to a Tom Ford quad, and you get way more shadows than a Tom Ford quad, so if we want to get really technical, for luxury shadows, per shadow, this is really not awful. It's still a pretty high number. Disregarding the number of shadows, it's a high number. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I'm feeling like I need to justify anything to you guys. This is a very silly purchase that you get, and you get it because you want it. Like, you know it's expensive for what it is, you just want it anyways. So I'm gonna have that shadow laid down. I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush, and I'm gonna try and make sure I actually pick one that's clean. I want to use the dark brown that's over here. This is kind of the cooler, neutral leaning cool dark brown. Gates is having a sneezy snorty fit behind the microphone. He does that sometimes, and then I have to like wipe his snot off of things. I mean, I love him, but he's gross. Not seeing any fallout with this, which is great. Again, the sparkle is not coming from the pan at all. It's just the previous shade with that contaminated brush. There's just sparkle all over my eyelids now. Do not assume that there are sparkles in these mattes. Ooh. Pretty. So I'm using a more diffuse brush, so I'm not getting a total opaque layer, but I don't really want it to be super dark. I like this so far. I feel like these shadows are giving just a really nice blended effect. They really spread out and nicely without being messy in the pan. So like if we're using, like, for example, compare these to like the classic powdery ABH formula. This is like totally not that. but it blends out really nicely, which I know the classic ABH formula, it was so powdery, and kind of the plus side of that was that those shadows were historically pretty easy to work with, usually, not always, but usually. Like, I know I do a lot of really colorful looks on my channel, but I am still definitely a sucker for stuff that's boring. Like, I'm a sucker for everything. I just like everything, which is so dangerous. Like, I'm always jealous of people who have such explicit eyeshadow preferences because they save way more money than I ever could think of. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this shade is matte. Honestly, sometimes it's hard to tell, but I'm gonna use this shade. I think this shade is gonna be matte so that I can use this to kind of blend everything out. It kind of feels like it has a slight peachy undertone. This definitely reminds me of the kind of shade that Korean eyeshadow palettes love to have as the base shade you put all over the eyelid. You can definitely see it's darker, it's showing up a little bit, but barely, and it's serving to blend out everything else. So now everything else looks like extra super smooth. Like, you see it like made a difference though. Like, you can barely see, but at the same time it made a difference. It's like using alcohol to blend out Copics when they're wet, or using lighter Copics to blend out darker Copics when they're still wet. You can like spread the pigment that way. That's what this shade is giving me the vibes of. It's kind of serving to do that in a really pretty manner. Do you see the difference now? Especially in the front here, you see that difference? I'm actually taken aback at how beautiful the gradation is now. It just feels like a painting, which is very in line with the marketing that BYREDO likes to use for their really big palettes, which I kind of poo-poo a little bit because it just feels like they're trying to be pretentious, but not gonna lie, they're not lying. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this shade down here as well. I'm not really gonna use it below here though. I do kind of like the winged precision. And I did already put on my bronzer and blush. I was actually filming that, hoping to put on my Instagram as a reel. Okay, wow. I'm like actually super enthused. I thought this would just be super silly. Like, I thought it would be good, but like it wouldn't be like blow my socks off memorable. But this unassuming transition shade is everything. Okay, so there's two silvers in this palette, and I remember the swatches. One of them was a little bit more, yeah. Okay, so one of them is more foiled and the other one is more sheer and sparkly. So you see how there's two different finishes. They're both shiny, but you definitely can see both ends of the spectrum here. Really pretty. So I'm going to use this shade first, and then I'm going to use this shade next. Ooh. And there's still a lot left on my finger too, by the way, you guys. I am gonna go in with a brush to add an extra layer because I do not want this to like explode all over my eyelids. I actually for once kind of want to keep this pretty tightly controlled over where it goes. Like, I feel like I'm a gross person. I'm probably not, but I feel like I'm a gross person, and I am a little bit obsessive with keeping my makeup super clean, keeping my things super clean. I may or may not have a mild pathological obsession with like the outward cleanliness of my things. It's not really something I feel like I need to fix. I don't have compulsive thoughts to like spend hours and hours of my life cleaning my things. I just handle my things very carefully and delicately, and I do spend more time than maybe other people would cleaning things, but it's not to the degree where I feel like I genuinely can't get things done, and it's not causing me severe enough distress that I think it's a problem. I just end up with things looking very like clean. And that was completely off topic, but anyways, that's one of the reasons why I don't really swatch things, and I don't really do like in-depth swatches of things that I talk about, because I just don't want to get them dirty. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm getting them dirty, because even if my fingers are clean, just the fact that my finger has swirled in the pans, it just makes me feel really uncomfortable and stressed. So anyways, I'm taking a brush. I'm just using a very stiff synthetic brush, and it picks up so easily, and the shadow felt so smooth, but the layer that went on my eyelid felt so thin and light, and it's transferring from the brush to my eyelid. It does not have the same foiled effect as, say, a Terra Moon's foil, because the particles are still extremely fine, so it's not going to give off that really thick molten metal effect. It is definitely still giving a very opaque, smooth layer of shininess. So pretty. And I absolutely love it, and I'm really trying my best to really just keep it right there. All I can think, okay, I'm gonna be honest, all I can think of right now is somebody needs to go and put Teresa is dead on the phone and tell her about this silver. I think she mentioned in her video where she talked about this though that she has gotten a lot of tags, so I'm sure she's heard somebody talk about it. Favorite silver of all time is actually an ABH Sultry, which is why you never see me break it out on camera. That silver has a much thicker molten metal effect look to it. Definitely not the same as this, where the individual particles are so small and so fine. So it's still not the same finish as that, like it's still different, okay? Okay, so I'm now gonna go into that sparklier silver, so I'm just gonna use the same brush. Oh, you can see how this is even more loosely pressed and the particles pick up way more than the other one. I don't need this much shadow, oh my gosh. Okay, well I did not need this much eyeshadow on my brush. So as sacrilegious as it feels, I'm gonna kind of tap the excess off onto a paper towel. That got dangerous, so I'm gonna start it here and then I'm going to work that into the inner corner. And do you see the difference in finish? How this is a little, it's still very fine, but do you see the difference? It feels like this topper one, the particles are just slightly larger, but I don't feel it at all. Really great. Of course, if you have like sensitive eyelids, then I don't think you're gonna feel the particles in this at all, because like for instance, the Pat McGrath glitter toppers, they can get pretty chunky, and like even though it's eye safe, it's not using plastic glitter, I can totally see someone with really sensitive eyes still feeling and being irritated by them. And I have said before, when working especially with indie brand shimmers, they're really pretty, but it can come at the cost of it's thick, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable, and sometimes it adds texture to your eyelids, creates this crepey effect. It looks smooth. I see no texture emphasis. So smooth, so awesome. Okay, I am so pleased with the comfort factor of these shadows. I was not expecting to be waxing eloquence about that. You know, sometimes that is something that some people have to consider. I want to use something shimmery on the lower lash line, but I don't want it to be silver. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and use this. I did see that there in the swatches that there are some more satiny-ish shimmers. Okay, yeah, I think this is definitely more low-key. There is still some residual silver glitter on this brush. I just roughly wiped it with a paper towel, and I don't mind the contamination because it'll help kind of make the look more unified. This shimmer shade is extremely subdued in comparison. Perfect for the lower lash line in the context of this look, where I don't want the lower lash line to distract from my upper eyelid. I'm just gonna finish off the rest of this makeup. I'm probably just gonna do mascara today, I think, because this look is pretty simple. So I think I'll just do, well, lashes are easier. I'm gonna just do lashes so that I don't have to take off my mascara later, okay? I'm gonna do some very natural lashes. I'll finish off my makeup. The lips are probably gonna be super basic because, as you can see, I have a third cold sore flare up. You'll see me in a few seconds at the cut. These bangs usually will stay pointing the way I want to for as long as I'm talking about this look, and then literally like 10 minutes after I take photos, they are just kind of back to normal. I do need to get some like hairspray or something. I forgot to place my second Sephora order because I forgot. But here's my final look. I really like how it turned out. As you can see, my lip is super boring. I definitely could have really finessed this look with the right lip color, but as I mentioned in the look portion, I don't know what the hell is going on with my cold sore flare-up. Usually I get one flare-up that lasts about a week, and I try and like use a Breva, I try and use a lot of lip balm to keep it moisturized, and it will go through the standard, it appears, it bursts, it, you know, dribbles all over the place, and then it scabs and the scab falls off. But I've been going instead, it'll like in under a day, it'll appear and then scab and fall off. But then not even 8 hours later, I'm feeling the tingling and the pain again in a new spot. So it was over here, and then it was over here. Now I have a new one over here. As a result, I just have a simple lip oil on with a tinted lip oil because I'm not dealing with this. What is it, like almost 100% of adults have the herpes virus? Is that what it is? So you guys will totally understand. But this is what is on my face. So I did use the liquid blush from Rare Beauty in Virtue, and the bronzer stick in Bright Side. That's what's on my face for my bronzer and blush, and I wanted to film a reel with that, so that's why I did that. Highlighter, I used the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Face Architect Highlighter in Moonlit Glow. I got this not full price and I'm glad I didn't because I have very mixed feelings about it. I would have rather gotten the other shades, but by the time I went back and thought maybe I'll get more shades from the ASOS sale, they had kind of already sold out. I used a different highlighter on my nose, and for that I used the Rare Beauty highlighter in the shade Enlighten. So I used this shade very delicately just on the very peak of my cheek highlighter, and then I used a little dab on my nose, and then I took what was left and as usual I just put it right on my chin. I did add, as you can see, very baby wings to the end of my eyeshadow. It just felt like it would finish things off a little bit. And then for my lips, I used lip liner to overline and kind of contour my lips, yada yada yada, but then what's actually on top of my lips is actually just the Dior Lip Oil Mahogany. As you can see, it is very sheer. So I'm gonna end my little ramble here. I am so happy with this look. Really elevated my mood for the night. I am very excited to continue filming with this palette. I actually am supposed to be filming with cosmic brushes, but I just really wanted to work with this because I'm a magpie, and I'm off to a blazing good start. So I hope this keeps up. We'll see if I'm disappointed. So in a couple seconds, you'll see the next look. My head did not magically grow in size. That is Sebastian waking up. Hello, Sebastian. You are very cute. He is very cute. So see you guys for the next look. Hi everyone, welcome back to look number 2. So as you can see, I already have my bronzer and blush on, and that is because I really want to go for a rosier look today. So I'm going to go ahead and take a very big brush, and I'm going to start off with this shade here, and then I'm going to use this shade here. So I'm going to use those two shades first and we'll see what we come up with. I do also really like how nice and large the mirror is. I have on today the eyeshadow primer from Jaclyn Cosmetics, and the only reason for that is because I did take a little bit of my blush up into the outer corners of my eyelids, and so I wanted to use a clear eyelid primer so that I wasn't covering it up. And I actually, because my anti-aging eyeshadow primer kind of ran out / dried up, I actually don't have any more clear or non-tinted eyeshadow primers. This is the only one in my collection that is non-tinted, so I just went ahead and used it. I don't feel like it does anything particularly special. Now I did get it for probably only $5 or $6 because Morphe was, it seems, trying to liquidate themselves a little bit for a while there. So for that price, I don't particularly have any problems with it, but I definitely will not be repurchasing it, and I don't use it that often. My favorite two eyeshadow primers at the moment are the NARS Smudge Proof Eye Base for if it's humid and hot outside, and the Rare Beauty primer for basically everything else. And very occasionally I will use the Peiliee eye base. That one kind of got superseded by NARS and Rare Beauty. So as you can see, as I was talking, I was putting on this shade. I really didn't put any effort into it, and it really looks like I applied this soft blushing tone to my eyelids that just kind of softly blurs out. Very painterly effect, which is honestly the effect I've been getting out of this palette so far, is one of like very artistic, very painterly, and just like reminds me of watercolors almost, so I do actually quite like it so far for that. And now I'm going to take a slightly denser brush, and I'm going to use the other shade I said I would use. This is actually a little bit more desaturated and a little bit more cool. Yeah, this is going to be such a soft pinky rosy look, which is completely fine by me. I haven't filmed in about a week. I initially was hoping to aim for twice a week while I have the kittens, but I just was absolutely exhausted last week. It's adding just like an ever slight color shift gradation. Yeah, you just see how soft that looks. Honestly, it's borderline boring, but like, I like it. So I'm now going to take that initial shade, doing the lower lash line, and because this look is going to be so simple, I kind of want to blow out the lower lash line more, really like connect it to the blush almost. And then I'm going to go into that other shade that I put on, and I'm going to put that in the outer corner. And it's actually a pretty similar color to my blush, so I'm going to go ahead and start bringing it down. I don't know why, but for some reason I smell the smell of like cat barf. I was correct, my nose does not betray me. Jackson had a scarf and barf, so I'll clean that up in a little bit. He knows he's not supposed to get into the other cat's food, but he tries to anyways, and then he pukes it back up because he's disgusting. And does he learn his lesson? No. Okay, so I used those two shades, so now I really want to go ahead and use this shade down here as kind of like the point shade. Seems really, really pretty, a lot more foiled. Yeah, so this kind of more copper toned than I expected. I'm just gonna lay it generally across my eyelid since the mattes are so simple. And it picked up really well on a brush and it's laying down really nice on my eyelid. Not really getting any fallout here. Again, even though it kind of looks like it's meant to be more foiled, the individual glimmer particles are so finely milled, it almost feels like it could go either way depending on how much you decide to pack on. And I feel like I put on a pretty thick layer there, but I don't really feel it when I blink, so that's really great too. So that's what that's looking like, and I'm just out of curiosity, I am gonna go ahead, see how it just looks so smooth and foiled on my finger. I just don't want to bring it up too far up my eyelid, which is why I wanted to use a brush first. This definitely kind of causes the look to look a little bit less pink and a little bit more copper, but I'm not really super bothered by that, honestly. So now I'm gonna go back into that initial light colored matte I laid down earlier, and I'm just gonna take it up and over the shimmer, kind of bring that pink back. I want to try this shade here. The mirror always flips things around. I'm going to try that on my lower lash line, so I'm just going to take a tiny brush. And this shade does appear to be more satin and soft, so this will be good for me to put down here. Yeah, as you can see, this shade has more of a satin effect. And then lastly, for the inner corner shade, I am going to go ahead and take this shade here. This palette also doesn't necessarily have like a super diverse range of inner corner highlights, but that's not really like a big problem for me because obviously I can always just use a different shade from elsewhere. But it does surprise me. I feel like one thing that would have made me like this palette even more is if they had maybe just like had like 2 or 3 different inner corner highlights and taken out maybe just like 1 or 2 of the mattes, because some of the mattes look a little bit similar. And if they really want to make this palette just super soft and delicate, then adding in a couple more inner corner highlight shades. Like there's the light silvers and then there's this kind of pinky hued champagne, so maybe if they had one that was a little bit more of a warm champagne, and then that would have kind of rounded out this palette, I think. But as you can see, this shade is so pretty. It's got kind of like a glittery aspect to it. It's a little bit translucent, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the innermost corner. And that's what that's going to look like. I do think I could use a little bit of eyeliner, and I want to use the eyeshadow. I'm going to use one of the darker eyeshadows as liner. So I am going to, I think I want to try using this shade right here. So it's going to be like a super soft eyeliner, and if it doesn't end up showing very much, then I'll just kind of blend it out and hide it. But I'm just curious to see if I can get this to show up at all. I may use 2 shades for this. I may use a darker shade on the very inner portion just so that it looks like eyeliner. I especially really like it on the lower lash line. It's adding a very soft lengthening effect to my eyes without being obvious at all. I'm going to go into that really dark brown I used in the first look just so that I can darken up the eyeliner a little bit on the top lash line only. Okay, so yeah, you can definitely see it better now. And so far I've been able to layer these mattes on top of each other without feeling like I'm drying out my eyelid. And then just like the littlest, tiniest bit down here, just like right along my lashes. And you can see that just adds a little bit of length and depth to my eyes. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and call this look complete. I know it was super simple. I think the only thing really that it's lacking at this point is just continuing to blow out the lower lash line a little bit. I think I really do want it to connect a little bit more to the blush. But other than that, this look is going to be complete, very simple and soft, although I know I took a while to work on it. Okay, so this is going to be a rosier toned look completed. As you can see, it's really not that complicated. It was very nice and simple, so I'm just going to do some mascara and then I'll finish off my face of makeup and I'll be right back. Hi everyone! So I lost the footage of me talking about the makeup look. I transferred files from my SD card to my computer and I must have missed one and then I cleared my card. So joke's on me, but basically here's some photos of how the look turned out. As you can see, I just went full on with the pink blush, the pink lips, matches my nails, etc. I, at this point in time, cannot remember the products that I used anymore, but they were really cute, and honestly, I think if you guys wanted to replicate this look, you probably have similar enough colors. So with that being said, I overall really liked the look. I liked everything I used in this except for the mascara. I think I was testing a different mascara. I think I might have been testing the Patrick Ta one. I can't remember at this point, but anyways, I really liked how it turned out. I felt super cute and pretty. So yeah, that's really all I can say. So I hope you enjoy these photos. I also have a close-up here of the eyes so that you can really see up close what everything looked like. So with that being said, I will end this voiceover and we will move on to the third and fourth looks. This video has gone on for long enough. Hi everyone, I'm back to film look number 3 with the BYREDO Remembrance palette. I actually had to go back and check my SD card to see how many looks I'd done, because it's been 2 weeks since I did the last look. Irregardless of how I feel, here I am at the filming chair. This is what the gold looks like. It is so pretty, and it being right next to the silver has me thinking it's going to be kind of a similar formula. As I've said before, I don't like digging my fingers into palettes to swatch because it just feels like I'm like making the palette dirty, so it'll be a surprise for both of us. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The mattes are probably going to be absolutely nothing revolutionary because this look is going to center around the gold. I think it'll be fun either way, so yeah. I am probably going to go ahead and just use a combination of like the brown, so this one, and then this one up here. The camera flips, so I'm like, and up here. So those 3 shades I think I'll use, and then I'm going to use the gold, and I'm thinking I may introduce a colored liner on top of the gold to create almost like a cut creasy, kind of like very defined division kind of situation. So we'll see where that ends up. Or with the fact that mattes can sometimes take down the tack of the eyelid, I am going to go ahead and kind of leave space for the gold, so I'm not going to put too much shadow down in the middle, and I'm going to see if that helps the gold look better. I am kind of curious to see if that's going to affect how it'll lay down, like in terms of how it'll look. If it's like a translucent sparkle, then my skin tone will show through, so it'll be interesting to see how it interacts with that. But in the meantime, as you can kind of tell, like first off, you can see just how quickly I'm able to work with these mattes to establish the look, but you see I'm just gonna leave this nice little gap right here. These mattes are really nice, and so far I've not had any issues with wear time. Now, if you look really closely, you might see spots where it's like kind of looking like it's stuck more. That's actually like the shadow of some bumps and pimples and healing just breakout situations on my eyelids. Whenever I get bumpy situations on my eyelids, it always makes me so irritated because it affects how the eyeshadow looks. Like I have, especially right down here, do you see? That's not eyeshadow patchiness, that's my bumps. So I've been trying to make them go away, but they kind of just keep popping up right now. I currently travel with NARS Climax and the Il Makiage Kathleen Lights palette, which I haven't shown on camera yet, but I use those two because my sister likes to pilfer my makeup when we're traveling. So she doesn't like pack hardly anything because she knows she can just use what I bring. So I do bring that palette, that Il Makiage palette. I bring that almost entirely for her because I know she really likes it. I'll shade her and roast her for using my makeup, but I still let her use it because, you know, she's my sister. Does anyone else have a relationship like that with their sibling where it's like you guys roast each other all the time and you guys sometimes sound like you hate each other, but if somebody wants or needs something, the other one is like, I got you. This palette overall, the one thing I do miss about this compared to the previous palettes that I believe were designed by Isamaya, and now there's like new creative director. Isamaya's palette designs always had a lot of range of depth. And this one is like, if you put a black and white filter on it, everything is going to look the exact same, and I don't really like palettes that do that. Which is why I kind of wonder why I got this. I think I got this partially because I was just super salty I didn't get the other one, even though I had multiple chances to get it. But I will say the shimmers in this are so pretty though. I'm not really super mad about having it either. But you can see it still does add quite a bit of depth. Really, really pretty. I am going to go ahead and switch to a smaller brush so that I can apply it more precisely. This is a Sigma Precision Firm blender. Honestly, I don't really like this. It is good for my lower lash line, but I feel like It applies shadows kind of inconsistently, unevenly. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but it kind of applies it not the greatest. I wonder if I didn't wash all the soap out of it, because it's kind of holding its shape whenever it bends. I'm gonna go ahead and just put this in the wash pile so I can wash it again, I think. And then I am gonna go ahead and take this shade in the lower lash line as well. I'm not doing any super specific shapes today. It almost feels like the looks are meant to be very hazy, and I feel like that kind of links back to the name Remembrance, because it's like your memories are not always super clear. I'm probably just like coming up with that off the top of my head, and they didn't actually mean it to go that far, but it's still a cute thought to think about, you know? I'm gonna take a smaller brush and I'm going to actually go into this super light colored shade here, and I'm going to use that to blend out everything on my lower lash line, just so that it's, you know, not too harsh. I feel like it's not super well blended otherwise. And I'm going to use it to make sure that the edges are super blended. Go over the top of my eyelid, because up here there's not going to be anything else. It's just going to be this, so any imperfections are going to be really obvious otherwise. And I did kind of go ahead, and you can see I kind of carried it in pretty far, kind of also acting as like a contouring my nose and my eye socket area, which is otherwise pretty flat. I have tried putting eyeshadow really far into that area before, like Nikki tutorial style, and it works okay, but I have to match it with eyeshadow that goes out really far, or like a super dramatic wing, or else it makes my eyes look very close together. So it does work, but I'm still not necessarily super comfortable with it yet, which is why I still don't do it very often. But yeah, you can see now with the addition of this lighter shade, the blend is just so nice and soft. The blend being rougher in the middle part is fine because the gold is going right on top of that, so I just don't care about that, for lack of a better term. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the gold now, and I'm gonna use a firmer brush, because I've noticed these do honestly pick up pretty well with the brush. Now, the particles are super finely milled, so it's not gonna give off a really smooth foiled look. It's still gonna give off this element of sparkle, but it's like super fine sparkle. It's not quite Pat McGrath sparkly because it's too finely milled for that, but it's not going to be quite foiled either, again, because it's too finely milled. I did get some fallout. There is a little, my cheeks are very slightly sparkly, but thankfully with it being so finely milled, it's not super noticeable, so we'll just go with it. So I am going to use my finger to apply that layer number 2. You can see, again, not quite foiled, but not quite like ultra glittery either. It's just this very, it just kind of is giving me tweed and pearls kind of vibe, for lack of a better term. Just feels like really like, almost like, feels fashion wise, it feels like very like a conservative finish. It's giving me like super like old school modest outfit vibes, which I'm not always in the mood for, but it is very pretty, and it's definitely, to me, you know, it like makes sense given the price point, I guess, because they're always trying to be like elegant and classy and sophisticated, even though that really doesn't mean like hardly anything when it comes to eyeshadow looks. So again, I'm just going to apply it carefully with a brush, and I'm using the brush mostly so that I can establish the upper and outer bounds of the eyeshadow, and then I'm going to go over it all with my finger. So you can see, look at the difference in application brush versus brush with finger. You can definitely see there is a huge difference. Now, one thing I will say is that because these are so finely milled, I'm going to use my pinky for this because my pinky nail popped off, so it'll be easier. I will say, because it's so finely milled, the wrinkles on my eyelids are being kind of disguised. So the one nice thing about this shimmer formula from BYREDO is just how smoothing it is. Look how hard it is to see my wrinkles through this. But it's not like satin and hard to see sparkly wise either. Like, I feel like there's a lot of luxury shadows out there that are concealing your wrinkles, but also they don't look shiny at all. But this one does look really nice, while still really hiding my eyelid texture. When something catches the light like a highlighter, you are going to see texture. Like, that's literally how light works. But I feel like BYREDO did a really good job of still kind of giving you your cake while you eat it, kind of a situation, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And again, I am getting some fallout, but it's light enough that it's fine. As Robert Welsh says, you really are supposed to do your eyes first. Like, I feel like most makeup artists do eyes first. Actually, 90% of the time I can't even form a habit, but if I do form a habit, like, you know, for example, how I do my makeup, then I'm extremely resistant to change. It's not anything I couldn't have gotten with literally any other palette, but it's still really cute, so I'm not complaining. I am gonna go ahead and just kind of, still don't have paper towels by my makeup desk and I'm too lazy to go get them still, so I'm just going to rub the brush off on my leg. And I actually really want to try using this shade on my inner corner. I haven't used this yet. My one complaint about this palette that I think I said in the previous two looks is that every single inner corner in this palette is some variant on silver, and I would have loved to have seen a warm option, but we'll run with it. Yeah, every single inner corner option for me in this palette is like some variation on a silver base. But there's warm tones in this palette, so where's my warm champagne? That's the one thing this palette is very conspicuously missing. Which, it has 18 shades? It has 18 shades. Come on, where's my champagne? This doesn't not work though, and it's very pretty on its own. I could see this shadow being paired with a taupe, but you know, I am not a creative designer of some luxury fashion house, so I guess I have no idea. Unless that creative designer got the internship and the job through nepotism, which very much does happen and could be the case, but we will again never know. Allegedly. I say none of this factually. Okay, so that is going to be this finished, completed look. I do really like how it turned out. It is really pretty. So the last thing that this is missing is going to be that eyeliner component, and because that's going to alter this look, I'm going to let you guys get a nice good look of this palette without the eyeliner, just so you can see it. And then I'm going to do the eyeliner on camera, and that way you guys can just kind of see both. The only white liner I have is from Game Beauty, and it's a felt tip, and I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'm still looking for good colored brush tip liners. Urban Decay released some new 24/7 liners with what looks like a really nice grip. I swear, if those are replacing the Perversion liner that I like though, I'm gonna be so mad because that's my favorite one. Does anyone know if the old Perversion eyeliner is being discontinued? If so, please tell me, because I legitimately will need to get a backup of that if that's the case, because that is the best black eyeliner I've ever used. I just on principle detest felt tip liners. I feel like I have no control. I need my brush tip liners, and I can't seem to find colorful brush tip liners because, like, I guess they just don't exist. So I ended up getting this one from Suku with my Tom Ford concealer stick order way back in January. So this will be my this will actually be my first time using it because I'm an embarrassment. So this is in the shade 108. It's not quite white, but you can see it's a very light, barely pastel green, so it'll still go with the gold. But I heard that these are felt tip too, so now I'm scared because it looks felt tip, but maybe if it's Suku I'll have more control. It's gonna be a very simple line, so at the very least I'm not making it complicated, so I'm gonna stop talking now. That's all I'm doing. And yes, it is felt tip, but as you can see, it at least got me a more consistently even line that's more opaque. The thing I don't like about felt tip is because I feel like I can't get super delicate points. Okay, but the quality is actually super nice, so this is like the least offensive felt tip I've ever used. And that color does actually work really well with this look. So now the hard part, which is making it symmetrical. Haha. I do have to go over it twice though, but at least it layers on itself really well. That's my other issue with the Game Beauty one in white, is that it doesn't layer very well on itself. It gets really thick. I don't know if you noticed, but this color dries down darker than it lays down. And the color that it is when it's wet is the color I'd rather have. But with light enough pressure, I can actually get a pretty thin line, not as thin as if I was using brush tip. But okay, this is the least offensive felt tip I've used. I could see myself drawing more detailed looks with this, so okay, I'm feeling a little less bad. But I still wish there were colored brush tip liners. So I'm gonna apply the rest of my makeup off camera and then I'll be back to discuss the final look. Okay, so this is my finished look. I just washed my hair today, so look at But ignoring that, I do really like how the look turned out. I just have mascara on today. I do like taking full advantage of my lash lift while I have it, so, and especially with these looks with the BYREDO Remembrance palette being a little bit more toned down, I kind of wanted to give a more realistic, like, what to expect out of this palette. So green liner aside, although yes, I would wear this look out in real life and not care, do wish it had a little more depth, so maybe not necessarily the smartest purchase for me to make, but given that it's my first experience with BYREDO's formulaically speaking, I've been having a good time, and the first two looks I was able to wear like between 4 to 6 hours, and no creasing, which is a good sign because if shadows don't crease in the first 4 to 6 hours, they generally will last all day on me. But if they do crease, they tend to crease really quickly because that means the formula is just really bad. But again, I have dry eyelids, so make of that what you will. Whenever I have really heavy gold eyeshadow on my eyes paired with like just neutral browns, I tend to just kind of go super neutral on the rest of my face because I don't know how to pair colors yet. I'm still working on it. So today I used this shade and this shade. I used this shade kind of under my eyes mostly, and then I used this shade to blend everything out and blend into my contour. For highlighter, I wanted to use something a little more gold, kind of a little bit more like dark, like a blush topper shade. So I went into my face palette and I used the shade right here. Now it's actually quite soft compared to my usual fair with Pat McGrath. I was kind of surprised at how soft it was. So I did end up topping it off just a little bit with Gold Sheer from Clio, which I think recently got repackaged and potentially maybe even reformulated. I hope it's just as good. I'm not going to be testing it out, but I hope it's just as good. I think it's in like clear packaging or something. I don't mind clear packaging, but I did hear, I don't know if it's different though, so please don't ask me, but this is the old, at this point this is now the old packaging, but it's still really, really nice. And I also used that on my nose and my chin since obviously I have to use lighter highlighters there. And I did use it just kind of right to top off my eyebrows, which excuse my partial nails. So that's what I did. As you can see, the pastel green eyeliner from Suku ended up being a lot darker and sagier than I expected. I still don't dislike it, but I was expecting it to be a lot lighter, like what it looked like on the lid and also what it looked like coming out, but it does dry down darker. And then I used the YesStyle Tatouage Couture Matte Liquid Lipstick Stain, long name, in shade 38, which is one of my favorite shades from YSL, and I am still mad that this formula is being discontinued. But anyways, I am not going to be able to get a good wear time out of this look because it is actually midnight. I need to go feed the kittens and go to bed. So I'm going to finish up this video, and then after that I will just consider things done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this third look. There will be a fourth look in a few seconds, and I will work on it whenever I can. This video has so far taken like 3 weeks to film, so yeah, on to the next look. Hello, I'm back for look number 4, and as I said, I'm going to center the look around this shade right here. I'm just going to go ahead and start off with this shade here because I actually want to use this shade, and then I want to use this shade because I haven't used them yet. Yeah, so it's going to be definitely a very shimmer heavy look, but I think that should be fine. I'm gonna take a denser brush, like a stiffer brush, so that I can really pick it up. And I'm just going to start this here. Has a darker base. So the darkest shade in this palette is gonna be this shimmer finish. Now I know some people are like really conflicted on that, like some people would rather the darkest shade be matte. I'm like not really like caring too much either way, but I will say generally speaking, I'm not the best at working with shimmers with dark bases. They can sometimes be really unforgiving. In this case, because the shimmer particles are so finely milled, you can see that they are applying pretty evenly and I'm not getting too much patchiness, but I am definitely going to be using other shimmers in this palette to blend out this, or else I'm going to look like a complete and total mess. As I mentioned before, I hadn't really even swatched this palette before getting started on this, so every time I lay down a shade I haven't used yet, I am pleasantly surprised. Now the last look that I filmed, and I was doing it between the hours of like 10 and midnight, I actually ended up having to stay up till like 4 because I had to do some kitten stuff. So at the 4-hour mark, I will say the eyeshadow pretty much looked pristine. So far I've been having a pretty great experience with the wear time on this palette, which is cool. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and use this shade right here so that I can immediately start blending things out. This is definitely very much trusting the process, but I think this should work. This shimmer is also pretty opaque, which is really cool, and this, usually I don't like using the Rephr 21 for shimmers, but the Rephr 21 has been working really great with this specific formulation for some reason, so that's nice. Although that being said, it seems like the formula of these shadows has so far been pretty easy overall. Like, I hate to say it because it's so expensive, but this palette's not bad at all. I definitely do really wish I hadn't missed out on the Kalahari palette, but it is what it is. And I've been filming for like 5 minutes now. The first 2 minutes were me trying to get the camera to focus. I'm already putting together a very, very cohesive look that I could end right here and go out the door and look pretty, and this is like 2 shadows and so quick. But I am going to go ahead and bounce back into that darker shade. And so now I'm just going to go kind of back and forth. And I'm laying this down directly on unset primer. These definitely look much better when you apply them on a bare eyelid as opposed to on top of a matte, but it does make sense because they stick down better, which I think that's not really something about this formula. I think every shimmer is going to perform better on a bare lid as opposed to on top of a matte, which is why glitter glues exist. I definitely really love when palettes let me do that because I don't always want to use mattes. Sometimes I'm just not feeling like it. That is so pretty. I love that so much. I am now going to use a very, very, very diffuse brush, and I'm going to go into this kind of sandstone color right here, and I'm going to use that to blend out everything. Specifically on the outer corner, I just want there to be a nice gradient there. As you can see, I've got some healing pimples that popped up a couple days ago. Or no, these literally popped up like overnight, but just ignore that. It's gonna affect how the shadow looks, but that's just how life is. I'll literally have pimples that pop up like overnight and are gone by the next day, or I'll have them pop up throughout the day and they're gone by the next morning. Like they're just like, hello, goodbye. It's definitely not something worth complaining about, but it can be kind of annoying still. You can see the difference now. There's just a little bit more orange. And as you can see, I blended it out pretty far down, which is fine. That warm copper shimmer I laid down on top of the dark brown one is a little bit see-through, so by putting this matte down on top, I'm kind of like filling in the sheerness of the shadow, and so now it's looking a lot more warm. Okay, so that's the look so far. That has been just absurdly easy. I feel like this dark brown is kind of making my wrinkles look a little bit emphasized. Okay, so now I'm going to use this shade here on the lower lash line. This one is more of like that satin kind of shade. As you can see, it's very, very minimal. I've been keeping the lower lash line pretty light for all 4 looks. Just kind of felt like it was the mood of this palette. And then I think I am going to go ahead and take this shade and just stick it right here so that it can blend into the inner corner highlight, which I'm not so sure what I'm going to use yet for that. But you can see it just adds a little bit of brightness. Very subtle, but it's very pretty. Definitely really leaning into that kind of Chinese aesthetic, that very popular Chinese look where the inner corner highlight gets brought up and over, which I had been doing for a while before realizing that I was accidentally, unknowingly, kind of just hopping onto a trend. You know, as I said earlier, I do wish there was kind of like a warm champagne, so it kind of does suck a little bit that there's not one. I think I'll just go ahead and I will just use this shade up here, but I'm going to use it very lightly. Okay, so I ended up I mixed a little bit of this shade with this shade, and I think that helped it be a little bit less cold. I actually can't remember if I used that shade in this video or not. Now I feel really awkward. That one taupe shade definitely seems like a shade that I would have used, but I'm struggling because it took me so many weeks to film this whole video. I am now unable to remember if I did or not. So if I didn't, please forgive me. I feel like I did. I'll just kind of stick it like right here, just for fun. Well, I mean, it didn't look bad, does it? Yeah, just because I can't remember if I used it or not, I just felt like... That's the fun thing about shimmers too, is that you can kind of just pile them on, and I actually think it would be good for me to use that shade in the outer corner as opposed to using the dark shade, so that I can have some depth without going too crazy. Okay, so this is going to be the completed eye look. As you can see, this probably was the shortest one in this entire video, and it really just felt so effortless. I will say the shimmers in this palette are definitely way more fun than the mattes, of course. I'm going to go ahead and finish off my makeup off camera. I think I will put on lashes for this look, just because this look is on the smokier side, and so yeah, I'll be back shortly. Okay, so this is going to be my finished look. I do really like how everything turned out. Aside from the fact that my lip ended up being a lot darker than I expected, and in retrospect I should have used a different blush, but I'm still testing out the Blend Bunny blush palettes, which I have thoughts on. There'll be a video on that. But this is how everything turned out. So as a final 4th look for the palette, I think I ended on a really great note because I actually feel like this might be the favorite look of the 4 that I've done. It just came together so well. Something about me just using no mattes aside from, like, you know, at the very end to tidy things up, but just focusing on those shimmers I think really has made me fall in love with the palette just kind of all over again and just love it even more, which makes me even more bummed that I can't take it to travel because it is quite fragile. That's okay, you can't have it all. I hate to say it, but I feel like I didn't waste my money. I'm never going to recommend anybody buy anything expensive, particularly when it comes to eyeshadows, because there's a lot of other things we could be spending our money on besides colorful shiny powder. But I think if you are okay with the color scheme of this palette being a little bit more plain with a little bit less range, I don't think you're going to dislike this palette. I had a really great time working with it. I'll just quickly go over what I have on my cheeks. I ended up using kind of like a big mashup of blushes. I initially just wanted to use Blend Bunny Bare Cheek. I was hoping to just use these two shades here, but I'm gonna have some thoughts on the quality of these pigments. I think this is one of the reasons why I tend to stay away from indie blushes. But I had a really hard time blending it out and everything, so I ended up using copious amounts of this new blush from Flower Nose in the shade Coral Jellyfish, and that really helped to kind of salvage the look. And as you can see, my blush ended up turning out pinkier than I expected. We can work with that. So then for highlighter, I'm kind of testing out this thing that Tara Babies does where she uses a cream base and then she uses powder on top, especially when you use a matte blush and then you have dry skin. Highlighter just won't stick on top and it won't look that great, so I decided to lay that down first. And of course, laying that down over a lot of powder, it's going to look really strange on its own, but then I went on top of it with highlighter from the Rose Gold palette that I like so much. Now, as you guys know, I've mentioned before, this is broken, so I have to like keep it flat on the ground, so I can't really hold it up well for you guys, but I did use that, and you can see it stuck to the cream base really well, and I think it doesn't look half bad. I think my texture is a little more emphasized than normal, so I'm just gonna keep playing around with it. I did also use it kind of on my nose and on my chin, and then for my lips, I was intending to just use like a burnt orange color, but I wanted to use a product that I hadn't either used yet or hadn't used in a while, so I could have used a MAC Powder Kiss or I could have gone for Romand, but I thought to myself, I use those so often, I wanted to try something new, so I would use the YesStyle 34 from the Tatouage Matte Lip Stain, which is my favorite formula ever that's being discontinued, but it's so hard to tell with the frosted bottles. This is not the shade I was going for. Excuse me on that one, but that's okay. I do have false lashes on. I think I just used House Lashes Love and Light, and then I just have a little bit of lower mascara. And then I did use the Clio Gel Presso Liner in the shade 01 as my eyeliner. You can see I drew some really nice wings. I also used it to fill in my inner corner. Yeah, this is totally a look I would just wear out daily. Like, I would just consider this is what I would consider to be my daytime look. Like, you know, that's just so you guys know what kind of makeup context we're looking at for me. But yeah, I really love this look. I love how everything turned out, and personally, kind of dig this palette. I like it. I'm not gonna be ashamed to say it. I think this is really pretty. My only biggest complaint really is just the fact that these are the only two dark shades in the entire palette, and there is no warm champagne inner corner highlighter. I am definitely still really bummed I did not pick up the Kalahari palette, especially considering it restocked like 3 times, and I could have gotten it the second and third times and I couldn't because it was bad timing, and now it's just like gone forever. So definitely super salty about that, but I am honestly really happy with this, and I think I will go ahead and get next year's. I'll just go ahead and add that to my annual releases that I get until further notice, because like I actually really like these and it's really pretty. The presentation's really pretty. I do really like the artistry behind it, so I like. And the fact that it only comes out once a year means it doesn't really feel that overwhelming either, so yeah, like I'm not mad about it. Like maybe if they released this like 4 to 6 times a year, I'd be kind of upset, because like that's a lot to keep up with. I'll probably pick up next year's too, unless it's, you know, looks the exact same as this one. There are no pressed glitters in these giant palettes, which is great. So for those of you who are concerned about that, that's not a worry. I was expecting this to be my clown moment, but it's actually like kind of sort of a good product, so I eat my words. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off. I do have another video I'm going to film quickly after this, so I'm just going to end this here. If you guys have any questions about this BYREDO palette, you definitely are free to ask me. However, I will not be able to offer any help with comparing this to prior releases because this is the first one I have. If you are interested in comparisons and other previous release information, I highly recommend you check out Lexi Jong's video channel, and also Kinky Sweat, as usual, is another great resource. So that's, you know, 2 different skin tones for you to look into depending on which one is more appropriate for you, and I'll sign off here. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!